welcome to Julee.
Thank you, Rosemary. Thank you for having me back. I was here in October, I think. I came to meet everybody here in October, and I'm excited to be here. Let me start today with asking you a question. Have you ever worked long and hard toward a goal or a dream, only to find out when you got there it wasn't what you envisioned?
Yeah.
Me too. In fact, I climbed the corporate ladder for 25 years to find out that it was leaning against the wrong building. And each time I climbed a rung on the ladder, I sold a piece of my soul to the corporation. And by the time I got to the top, I felt like this lifeless shell, unfulfilled, unhappy, and empty. And I was sure that I was the only one that felt this way because nobody was talking about it. And I felt like it was my dirty little secret. And I was guilty about feeling grateful for what I had, but that wasn't enough. And I had a son. I still have a son. But he was at home. And I didn't really want to be a stay-at-home mom till he was in high school. But I thought, I would like to tuck him in at night. And so I carried that guilt of not being a good enough mom. And if you had seen me, though, you would have thought that I had the perfect life. I had the great husband, I had the awesome son, the beautiful home, the high-powered job, and the big income. 2 cars in the garage, and probably a whole bunch of other things, too. What you would not have seen was that I worked 60 to 80 hours a week. I traveled 50% of the time. I gave up my personal life for a soul-sucking job. My health was failing, and my marriage was on the rocks. And I didn't see a way out because I had these golden handcuffs on my wrists. And you might be asking, why was I even running on that treadmill? Because I thought I had to be worthy of the dream life that I was pretending to live. And I also thought that when I got to the top, there would be these big boxes with big shiny bows on the top that said happiness, worthiness, and self-love. And boy, was I wrong. Today, I want to share with you my journey from soul-sucking life to a life I can't wait to jump out of bed and live every day. I love my life. And it took some work to get here. When you love your life, you age slower, you'll look better, you have more energy, and you just can't wait to share it with the world. Who doesn't want a little bit of that action? So let's begin with the basics before I get into the tips and the techniques today to help you live a great life. Everybody in this room is pure energy. You're made up of whirling electrons and protons and atoms and molecules and chemical substances. And I guess if everything stopped whirling, we might just be puddles on the floor, but don't quote me on that. And when you have a thought, in fact, every thought that you think and every word that you speak and every action that you take sends out energy into the world in the form of instructions about what you want back. And the world or the universe looks at those instructions and says, well, okay, if that's what she wants, I want her to be right. This is the one time we get to be right all the time, but we don't always want to be right all the time, and sends back what you ask for. You've probably all heard that saying that what you focus on, you get more of. So if you focus on not having enough money at the end of the month, you will not have enough money at the end of the month. If you focus on what's going wrong in your relationships or your businesses, you're going to get more of what's wrong. And so we want to make sure we flip our focus. Now let me share you a story about how powerful our thoughts are and how I thought myself out of a job. Because as a little girl, I always knew I was going to grow up and be the head honcho at some company. That was my dream. And I was pretty sure that if I focused and I studied hard and I got good grades, that I could make it happen. And I aced my way through high school and college, and I landed that sweet job where I started my climb up the ladder. And 25 years into my career, our country experienced a devastating disaster. Some of you probably remember it, 9/11. And business in this country went to a screeching halt. I personally went from traveling weekly to once every 3 months. Now you can imagine that after several months of this scenario, our company had to make some pretty tough decisions because our profits were starting to dwindle and the bottom line was a pretty dismal view. And this is when I got a call from my boss who said, "You have to lay off your entire North American team." These were people that I had handpicked, and they were top performers. And I sat down and I sobbed. And one by one, I picked up the phone and I let them all go. And when I was finished with the dastardly deed, I hesitantly picked up the phone to call my boss back, hoping that she wasn't going to lay me off. And she did not. But she informed me that I was now covering the entire North American territory. And so for the next year, I traveled anywhere they wanted me to go at a moment's notice. I could be in Seattle one day or New York City the next day. I think I put close to 100,000 air miles on that year. And my thoughts during that year were, Julie, you got to work harder, you got to work longer hours, or you too could lose your job. You heard that, right? You too could lose your job. And 1 year later, I was invited to leave my job. Some things you don't want to be right. So my first tip for you today is I want you to monitor your thoughts because they are creating your life. If you don't like what you have right now, you can change your life by changing your thoughts. You were born with pristine thoughts. And in fact, every one of us has about 60,000 thoughts per day. Whew, no wonder we're tired at the end of the day, right? That's a lot of thoughts. Here's the part that's not so, that's a little humbling, and that is only 5% of those thoughts are conscious. The other 95% are subconscious and running your life, and you're not even controlling them. But now that I've shared that with you, your conscious percentage is going to go up. Now, there's some subconscious thoughts that we want to keep, like the ones that tell our heart to beat and our lungs to breathe. Can you imagine having to tell your body to do that every few seconds? Phew, that would be tiring. But there's those thoughts that you get from the inner bully, or what my friend Julee calls the itty bitty shitty committee, that you don't want to keep. That inner bully is the one that gets all puffed up and feeds your mind stinking thinking and negative self-talk. Things like, I am not worthy of huge success. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not thin enough. I'm not lovable. I'm not. We all have our I am nots. And those are the thoughts that you want to make sure you stop in your tracks because they are what's holding you back from whatever it is that you really want to have in your life. Now, I had a very active inner bully when I lost my job. And I knew that this was going to take some work and that I needed some tools. So the first tool I'm going to give you today is what I call my stop, cancel, clear. I would carry a little notebook with me, and every time I had one of those stinking thinking thoughts in my head, I would write it down. And I would go home at night and I would reframe them. And I would use those reframes as positive affirmations. So when I would say, I'm not pretty enough, I would say, I'm so darn pretty, they had to exceed the scale past 10. Right? I'm so smart that I have 2 college degrees and a lifetime of wisdom in my brain. And you know what? My body is the right and perfect size. In fact, it's got sexy written all over it.
We saw that.
And so when one of those thoughts would come in my head, I would say, stop. Because here's what happens to your thought. It travels down the neural pathways of your brain. It always gets to a fork in the road, and it can go left or it can go right. But you see your inner bully? If yours is like mine, she's been going left for so long, she doesn't even notice that there is a fork in the road. So when you say stop, you're telling her, stop at the fork in the road, because you have choices. And when you say cancel, you're saying cancel that automatic left turn. And when you're saying clear a pathway to the right, to the positive affirmation. Now let me show you how this worked in my life. We were born with pristine thoughts. So how do they get off track? We all have well-meaning people in our life who feed us and install new beliefs and thoughts into us while we grow up. It could be teachers, ministers, parents, aunts, uncles, anybody that's ever been in your upbringing. I was lucky enough to have installed in me, life is hard. Nothing worth having comes easy. I'm sure none of you ever heard that, right? Life is hard. And I remember my life really was not very hard. Okay, coming through the birth canal was probably a little tough. But once I was out, all I had to do was cry and someone would pick me up, cuddle me, change me, or feed me. That sounds pretty easy, doesn't it? And as I got older, getting good grades, sports, making friends, easy, easy, easy. And my parents started telling me, life is hard. Life is hard. I'm like, they're crazy. I don't know what they're talking about. My life is not hard. I don't know why they keep telling me this. But they finally told me enough times that I thought, maybe I should sit up and take notice and find out what it is they're actually talking about. And so I started watching their lives. And guess what? Their lives were hard. And I perceived and built into my mind that as an adult, life must be hard. And so when I became an adult and got out of college and started that climb up the corporate ladder, there was like this little switch that got flipped. Life is easy. Ooh, life is hard. I'm an adult now. Life is hard. And I sent that instruction out to the universe, and the universe sent me back hard life experiences. Some thoughts you don't want to have, right? So monitor your thoughts. The second tip I want to give you today is to have an attitude of gratitude. Gratitude is really changing your focus from the negative to the positive. Sean Anker, you might want to look this up. He did a TEDx talk on the happy secret to better work. I love what he said. He says, when you can raise your level of positivity in the present, then your brain can experience a happiness advantage. Who doesn't want a happiness advantage? And he says, your brain in positive mode can significantly perform better than it does at negative, neutral, or stress mode. In fact, your intelligence and your creativity and your energy will rise when your brain is in positive mode. So what he does is he has his corporate clients list 3 new things of gratitude every day for 21 days. And here's what happened. Their brains started to scan the environment for the positive, which is really hard to do since we live in a negatively charged environment. So how can you incorporate gratitude into your life? Well, I wake up in the morning, I roll over, and I hug my bed. Thank you. I am so grateful for the comfy sleep I had last night. I hug my pillow. I am so grateful that you supported my head and neck. And then I say, thank you. I'm so grateful that I get to have another day to live life to the fullest and go inspire other people to do the same. And then I am so charged up. I jump out of bed, and unlike you, I jump into my pants, both legs at once. And then I go out for my gratitude walk, where I look around me and I can see everything that I can be grateful for. The spring flowers that are coming up, the sunrise, the water, because I walk along the Columbia River, the people that I meet along the way. You can incorporate gratitude to your dinner table. When we first started doing it, I started a little journal, and everybody at the dinner table got to say what they were grateful for that day. And at the end of a year, we went back and we flipped through pages, and we could see that our gratitude and the things that we were grateful for were so much bigger towards the end of the year because we hadn't seen them before. We were focusing on the negative. You can do it when your children go to bed at night. That way they go to bed when they're positive, with positive thoughts in their mind. They sleep better, and they get a more restful sleep. The third tip I want to give you today is to be selfish and schedule some self-care. Now, I'm going to tell you that this is not selfish, but this is a requirement. When you pretend that you all have a pot of gold inside of you, and every time you do for others, a piece of gold leaves the pot. And what happens when the pot is empty? You don't have anything left to give. But do you keep on giving? Yes, a lot of us do. And when we keep on giving, when our pot of gold is empty, we get angry, we get resentful, and we get tired. And who is the person that we can blame for that? Ourselves. That's right. Because we didn't do any self-care. Now, self-care is on my calendar. I have a color-coded calendar. Self-care is lavender. If there's no lavender on my calendar, that's a big red flag. Several years ago, my husband and I, we decided that we were going to do regular massages. And so we would buy a 4-pack and we would put them on our calendar every 3 weeks, and they are not optional. They feed my mind. They rejuvenate my soul. And they relax my body. They make me a better wife to him, and they make him a better husband to me. I'm sure that they also made me a better mom to my son when he was at home. Now, we know we can't have a massage every day, darn it. But there are other things that we can do for self-care. I have a morning routine. I like to meditate and journal. I call it the RPM method. It's called Rise, Pee, and Meditate, because if it's Rise, Pee, and email, it's all over, right? Once I hit the email, everything goes to hell in a handbasket. Email in our house doesn't open till 11. And we get a lot done before 11. You can read a book. You can, Stephen King doesn't count. That's not what we would consider a self-care activity. You could take a bubble bath with a sign on the door that says, "Do not disturb." You could go for a hike. You could go by yourself or with somebody that you like. Don't go with someone you don't like. That's not a self-care activity. If you like to garden, you can actually use that as self-care. I hate gardening, but I love watching your garden grow. That would be self-care, watching your garden grow for me. You can listen to music. There are so many things that you can do, and it doesn't take much time every day to fill up your pot of gold, but it does need to be tended to daily. The fourth tip I have for you today is visualization. And visualization will spark the creation of your dreams faster than anything else. It can wipe out a whole day of negativity, but there are some guidelines. It's like pretending. That's what visualization is. It's pretending, seeing what your dream is and putting yourself in the picture. The guidelines are that you only need to do it for 5 minutes a day. Why 5? Because if you go longer than 5, your mind starts to wander. Women start to think about their to-do list, and men start to think about sex. That's just the way it is. Another criteria for your visualization is that you want to imagine every possible detail of your magnificent life. What does the ideal day look like? What are the sights? What are the sounds? When I started visualizing about being a professional speaker, I saw myself on the stage. I heard the claps. I heard the laughter. I heard the gasps. I could feel it all. And I was sure that I was going to get there. If you put yourself on the outside of your visualization, looking in, it won't work. You got to put yourself in the picture. And be gentle with yourself if you happen to have some negative thoughts when it starts. Just like positive affirmations, you have to hear them over and over again to start believing them. The same way I had to hear the negative one over and over, visualization is the same way. You have to visualize over and over. And only do one dream at a time. It's only 5 minutes. So if you ever have a really crummy day, come home and visualize for 5 minutes and it will totally wipe out your entire day. That's how powerful it is. Now today, I taught you about how your inner bully sabotages your life and that it's really important to monitor what she says, that you get to fire her because she lies. She's not telling the truth about you. And I gave you a tool, the stop, cancel, clear. I gave you that tool to help you stop her in her tracks. I talked to you about gratitude and how it can retrain your brain so that you are scanning for the positive in the world and not the negative. And I talked to you about self-care and how important it is to filling up your pot of gold. It is the one gift and the greatest gift that you can give to yourself and to your family. And visualization, 5 minutes. You know, you can do that in the shower, at a stop, some of these stoplights. And you could do this at the table before your kids come home from school. You can do it anywhere you want. In bed in the morning or at night. What I want you to know more than anything is that you no longer have to live in a job that doesn't feed your soul. You no longer have to live a life of quiet desperation. And you no longer have to wait until retirement to live life. You get to choose, and whether it's now or later. And remember, there may not be a later, because life is short. If your inner bully is feeding your mind too much negative self-talk and running your life and you're sick and tired of it, I have more tools. See me afterwards. I will give you more tools for that. If you want to just up-level your life, I have more tools for up-leveling your life. I always keep thinking my life can't get much better, but every day is better. I have some tools for all of you, if you're interested, to help you start down the path of creating a life that you love, one that you desire, one that you deserve, one that has you walk in your magnificence. I have a free ebook. It's 11 ways to reclaim your life. And if you're interested and want a copy, just give me your business card afterwards and I will make sure that you get a copy. Does anyone have any questions about anything that I shared today? Pretty clear. I love that. Well, I just want to thank you for letting me share my passion, and I hope you all go out and live your life to the fullest and walk in your magnificence. Thanks.